Welcome to Life Stories, where true love, resilience, and the human spirit come alive through powerful storytelling. Today's story is about a billionaire trapped by duty and a woman bound by circumstance. A marriage of convenience that turns into something extraordinary. When pain, secrets, and healing collide, what begins as a contract slowly transforms into a life neither of them expected. Stay with us as we unfold a journey of courage, second chances, and miraculous love. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's story. You won't want to miss a single moment. San Francisco has a certain kind of beauty, grand, cold, and full of secrets. The streets curve like whispers, and the parties in its mansions are drenched in wealth, but often hollow at their core. I never thought that a chance encounter at one of those parties would change my life forever. But it did. Not with fireworks or fairy tales. No, it began with pain, with loneliness, with two people who had lost more than anyone could see. Preston Hayes stood at the edge of that glittering world like a man both in it and above it. The tabloids called him a billionaire, a tech mogul, a genius, but I saw a man quietly drowning in his own silence. Dark hair perfectly styled, silver cufflinks glinting under chandeliers, but his eyes? They were tired. They searched the room like he was looking for something he'd already given up on. I was there too, in a simple black dress that felt like borrowed armor. My wheelchair tucked behind an enormous vase of white orchids. I hadn't wanted to come, but my stepmother insisted. She said appearances mattered more than reality. And I supposed to her, they did. I used to dance. I used to feel beautiful and alive. The accident had changed that. They said I'd never walk again. But what they didn't say was that I'd never quite feel like I belonged anywhere anymore. That people would stop seeing me. Or worse, only see the chair. So when a tipsy man stumbled through the crowd, wine sloshing from his glass as he barreled toward me, I braced myself for the humiliation. I clenched the arms of my chair, heart racing, not because I was scared, but because I was so tired of being a target for pity. But then, Preston appeared, effortless, calm. He stepped between me and the man like a quiet shield, deflecting the glass, steadying the drunk's arm. The wine hit the floor in a splash of red. The man mumbled an apology and staggered away, leaving Preston standing tall before me. You don't have to play the hero. I snapped, more sharply than I meant to. I'm not a charity case. He tilted his head, just slightly. A flicker of amusement in those storm-colored eyes. I never said you were. I wanted to push him away. Verbally at least. I'd learned how to be sharp. How to defend myself with words. Please. The knight in shining armor routine? I've seen it. Doesn't impress me. He leaned closer, his voice low and strangely steady. Good thing I'm not trying to impress you. Maybe I just didn't want to clean up a wine spill in dress shoes. I didn't know what to do with that. He wasn't patronizing. He wasn't pitying me. He was just present. Honest. I hated that it intrigued me. He lingered nearby for the rest of the night, not hovering, but returning often with sly remarks that made me smirk despite myself. He didn't treat me like glass. He didn't flinch when I was sarcastic or cold. He saw me. When the ballroom finally began to thin, he asked to speak to me privately. I followed him into a quiet corner, unsure why I was still talking to him, but also unsure how to stop. My grandfather passed recently, he said. No preamble. Left me everything. The estate, the company, but there's a clause. If I'm not married within 6 months, I lose it all. I stared at him, baffled. That has absolutely nothing to do with me. I want you to marry me. The world tilted. I laughed. Sharp and bitter. You're out of your mind. You don't even know me. I know enough. He said. You don't want my money. You don't need my name. And I think you need this as much as I do. I wanted to scream at him. To tell him to find someone else to play house with. But his eyes didn't lie. He wasn't mocking me. And maybe I didn't have the luxury to walk away. Not with my stepmother's words still echoing. Be useful or be gone. Why me? I whispered. Because you don't want me. He said softly, and that's why I trust you. I didn't answer him then. I just wheeled away, the weight of the decision already curling into my ribs. He didn't follow, but his words stayed. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Every breath I took felt like a choice, pride or survival. My mind circled Preston's proposal like a moth around a flame. It wasn't love. It wasn't even romance. It was survival, cloaked in designer suits and estate clauses. And yet, I called him. Fine, I said into the receiver. My voice flat. I'll do it. The engagement party arrived too fast. Preston's mansion gleamed like something out of a film, high ceilings, chandeliers, champagne that never stopped flowing. He stood beside me the whole night, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Not possessive, not performative, protective, but I didn't feel like a bride to be. I felt like a placeholder. A silver-haired woman I didn't recognize leaned in that night. Her red lips curled into a sharp smile. Do you really think he'd marry you if he knew the truth? Her voice was a whisper, but it struck like a slap. What truth? I tried to ask, but she was already gone, slipping into the crowd like smoke. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The question churned inside me. Preston didn't push me for answers. Not when I was quiet. Not when I flinched at the smallest things. He was patient. He brought me coffee in the mornings. Asked about my favorite books. Joked that I intimidated most of his board members with one eyebrow raise. And slowly, I found myself wanting to tell him things. Small things at first, and then the big ones. But not that truth. Not the truth I didn't even understand yet. And then came the overheard conversation. Two men near the library at one of Preston's events. Voices low and bitter. She wasn't supposed to be there. One growled. Hayes was the target. She just got in the way. The ground fell out from beneath me. My accident. All these years, I'd told myself it was just cruel luck. A wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. But now I saw it in a different light. Someone had wanted Preston out of the way. And I'd been the one who paid for it. I didn't tell him. Not yet. I wasn't sure I could trust him. And I hated that. That same week, a letter arrived under the door. No return address. Just 8 words that changed everything. I can help you walk again. Meet me. I went. The clinic was tucked behind a shuttered grocery store. Its walls peeling. Its lights humming like old memories. Dr. Elias Hart stood waiting. He knew everything, my scans. The trauma to my spine. The precise language of pain I lived with every day. I've been working on a treatment. He said. It's experimental. High risk. But it might help. It might bring movement back. Why me? I asked. Too tired to be flattered. He smiled. Kind but steady. Because you haven't stopped fighting. So I agreed. Twice a week. No one could know. Not Preston. Not anyone. Hope was a fragile thing. But I let it in. And for the first time in years, I wanted something for myself. Not for appearances. Not to be useful. To stand. To walk. To reclaim me. I kept the secret close, like a flame cupped in my hands. Flickering but alive. Twice a week, I disappeared under the guise of errands or visits to old friends. And twice a week, I let Dr. Hart hook wires to my legs. Send currents pulsing through nerves that had long since gone quiet. Each session left me trembling. Breathless. But then came the twitch. A flicker in my right toe. Then the left. I cried in silence that night. Afraid to believe, but unable not to. Preston noticed. He asked gentle questions. His eyes watchful but never accusing. You've been different lately, he said one rainy evening. Not bad. Just quieter. I'm fine, I replied. Always fine. He never pushed. But I hated the space growing between us. I hated how much I wanted to run to him with the truth. And how deeply fear had its claws in me. One night, I came home late, drenched from a downpour. Preston met me at the door, smiling through his wet hair. Thought I'd cook, he said, holding up a wooden spoon like a sword. We ate pasta by candlelight, something simple, warm. When he brushed a strand of hair from my face, I froze. but didn't move. His touch lingered, his voice low. You're beautiful, you know that? I tried to laugh it off. But he didn't flinch, didn't waver, and when he leaned in, his lips meeting mine in a kiss that was both question and answer. I didn't stop him. I kissed him back, and for the first time in so long, I didn't feel broken, but the illusion didn't last. Camille, his ex-fiancée, began circling again. One afternoon, I returned from therapy and found her in our foyer. Her smile like ice. He doesn't know, does he? She said. Stepping closer. He'll find out. They always do. That night, she told Preston everything, her version. Twisted and cruel. The next morning, he confronted me. His voice was sharp, but beneath it, I heard the hurt. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know if I could trust you. I said, because Laia, Camille, was always right there. Because I overheard something. About my accident. It wasn't an accident, Preston. Someone wanted to hurt you. I just got in the way. His face went pale. What are you saying? Before I could answer, the room spun. My body collapsed. His voice followed me into darkness. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed. Machines beeped gently beside me. Preston sat in the chair by my side. His tuxedo wrinkled, hair a mess, eyes shadowed with worry. You scared me, he whispered. I turned away. Forget it, Preston. But he didn't. He stayed. Days later, a new letter arrived. Tomorrow. Final session. Be ready. And I was. At the clinic. Dr. Hart helped me to the bars. It's time, he said. I stood, trembling, gasping, standing. That night, at a gala, I wheeled into the center of the room and called his name. Preston. He turned, and I rose. His eyes widened. The room hushed. You're amazing, he whispered, arms open. I took a step, and fell. He caught me, but I'd already won. I stood, and I loved him. And this was only the beginning. 3 years later, our world looks nothing like it did back then, but in the best way possible. The penthouse still glows with sunlight in the afternoons. But now it echoes with laughter. The sound of tiny footsteps pattering across hardwood floors. Our daughter, Ava, with her wild curls and fearless heart, rules our days with questions, songs, and a toy plane she insists can fly to the moon. I walk now, slowly. Sometimes with a cane, sometimes just with Preston's hand in mine. My legs are far from perfect, but they carry me, and that's more than I ever thought I'd have again. Preston never let go. Not when I doubted him. Not when I doubted myself. He's still the quiet center of the storm. Still calling me his warrior. Still making dinner on rainy nights. And now, as we prepare for our second child, our home feels full, not just of things, but of life. There are days I still flinch from the memory of the crash, of the betrayal, of everything I lost. But I've gained something far greater. A family built not from perfection, but from resilience, from trust, from love. Our story isn't a fairy tale. It's not smooth or glittering, but it's real, and it's ours. So if you're watching this, and you've been knocked down by life, know this: you're allowed to hope again. You're allowed to fight for more. And sometimes, the most broken parts of your story can become the most beautiful. Thank you for sharing this journey with us. If you felt something, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe to Life Stories for more true, powerful tales of love, strength, and healing. We'll see you in the next story.